Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ulsi and I am really excited about today's video because last year, 2023, I did not have any of my eyeshadow palettes in any project pans, so I knew that I was organically going to reach for the different eyeshadow palettes that was in my collection. So I thought, I was inspired by Sarah Rose and Lauren May Beauty to do this video. I thought I would track every single use from all of the eyeshadow palettes for one entire year. And today I'm going to show you the results of that. It's not very often that I have a whole year where I don't have any of my palettes in a project pan, so it was just the perfect time. I focused on my single eyeshadows last year, so yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I have 18 palettes to talk about today, and I'm gonna rank them from the lowest amount of usage up until the most used palette of 2023. So how I did this, I got this little calendar with all the months, and I just noted every time I used a palette, I just wrote them down for the day, and yeah, that's basically how I kept track. And I will say that from looking at this calendar, the month where I used the most amount of palettes was definitely in January. There were like four days where there was no eyeshadow usage. Maybe I used my single eyeshadows, I don't remember, but that's typically the month I feel the most inspired. You know, the start of new project pans and the start of new year and all that, and I feel like I have more time to do my makeup. Whilst in July, that was my the month where I used the least amount of makeup in general, but also eyeshadows. So there were only 2 days where I actually used my eyeshadow palettes, which I find is interesting but not shocking, because July is also the month where the weather is the warmest here in Norway, and I tend to travel, and I just don't like to spend too much time in the bathroom doing my makeup. So we're just going to get started with the least amount of usage, which is, I only had one palette that I only used once in 2023, and that was, this is getting so dirty, that was the Tati Beauty Textured Neutrals, Volume 1 Textured Neutrals palette. It's not shocking to me that this was the least used. I was a little bit surprised that I only used it once, because I do really enjoy these eyeshadows. The quality is amazing, almost a little bit too good, because they're so incredibly pigmented that it is, sometimes it's not user-friendly when an eyeshadow is that pigmented. With that said, I do enjoy all of these eyeshadows. I don't really do glitters at all, but with these glitters, once in a while I do reach for them. Not very often, as you can see, but if I were to reach for a glitter, these would be the ones. I think it's because they're more like creamy, they stick to the lid a little bit better, because they're essentially like the same shades. A lot of them are, they just look like each other. So the palette itself is not super inspiring to me, but I always get really nice looks from using this. Right now I have the Metallic Ritual eyeshadow in my pan, those eyeshadows project pan. So I have definitely gotten some use out of it this year, but it's also a little bit big and bulky, and, well, not bulky, but it's heavy. So I do like to have more lighter, user-friendly. I like to use a mirror while I apply my eyeshadow that is a lot closer to me than the one in the bathroom, on the bathroom wall. And it's just a little bit difficult with this one. I've already stepped it up this year and I've gotten way more use out of it already. So I'm really happy about that. I'm just going to continue on that road because I don't want this palette to be neglected. It is a really nice palette. Alright, and then I have, so that was my only palette with only one usage, but I have two palettes here that I both used twice. So first off, this is the Colourpop Take Me Home eyeshadow palette. It's a 6-pan palette, very, very nice, travel friendly, beautiful eyeshadows. I like it a lot. Yeah, I just tend to save this for the times that I travel and it's just so easy to bring with me then. But because of that, I don't tend to reach for it organically other times. So it's just a really easy go-to. I know it works. I know what kind of eyeshadow looks I will get from this. So it's a really nice eyeshadow palette, but again, a lot of the times when I do my eyeshadows, I want to have fun with it. I want to feel inspired. I want to feel like, wow, this was a whole new interesting look for me. Although a lot of the times when I do my makeup, I do tend to end up with the same similar kinds of looks anyways, but it's just a feeling that I want to have when I do my makeup, that it's fun and inspiring to me. That's mainly why I do my makeup, so I really want that from an eyeshadow palette, and it doesn't quite give me that, but at the same time it's good to have in my collection. And the other eyeshadow palette that I used twice last year is from viseart. It's called Petite Force Lilas. That's not how you pronounce it, I'm sure, but this is also a really cute, not with a mirror though, but really nice travel friendly eyeshadow palette that I really do enjoy. It has these beautiful taupey eyeshadows, 2 metallics and 2 mattes. I think for the same reason as the Take Me Home palette from Colourpop, this is like something I think is great for traveling, and I know again what kind of eyeshadow looks I get from this. It's not a huge amount of variety here. You get a taupe look, that's basically it. viseart is kind of expensive, so I really feel like I should get some more use out of this palette this year. I still haven't reached for it so far. Yeah, I need to do that, but only 2 uses on this one, unfortunately. I have nothing bad to say about this. Great quality on these eyeshadows. Okay, so I have 4 eyeshadow palettes that were each used 3 times last year. And 1 out of those 4 I have since decluttered, which is the Guerlain Golden Bee palette. It was a hand-me-down. It was not a cruelty-free palette, so I was a little bit on the fence about it, but I found it to be really interesting. I was very curious to see how I liked it, compare it with some of the palettes in my collection. The colors were beautiful to look at when you swatched them, either on your hand or on your actual eyes. They did not look good. The mattes were really patchy and difficult to build, and there was very little pigment on both the matte shadows and the metallics in the palette. So for that reason I ended up decluttering that one. I actually gave it back to its original owner, so I'm okay with that. But yeah, I did use that 3 times before I kind of gave up on it. And so now I'm down to having 17 eyeshadow palettes in my collection. And so let's go into the other eyeshadow palettes that I had 3 uses on. This is the Makeup Battle Punk Hella Beauty from Makeup Mekka. This was a gift. By the way, Tati, Colourpop, and viseart are all cruelty-free, same as Makeup Mekka. It's a Norwegian, very affordable, kind of similar to e.l.f. And this is also a very neutral, nice, easy, on the go, everyday eyeshadow palette that I really do enjoy. I actually have this in my Panthers eyeshadows at the moment, and I've gotten a lot of use out of it. So it's not my favorite palette, but it's absolutely a good one. The eyeshadows are not the best quality, but still pretty good, I would say. So next I have the Beautybay Bright Matte 9 color palette. So before purchasing this, I just thought I wanted some colors in my eyeshadow collection. I had some colors in my Inglot singles, but they were getting a lot older. I am like currently decluttering them one by one. And so I just wanted a small palette that would help giving me some options color-wise. I feel like this really gave me that. So they're all matte, bright, beautiful colors, and these are great. The best colorful matte eyeshadows that I've ever tried. They're really beautiful. Right now I have this orange shade in the like outer part of my eyelid. I don't know if you can see that, but so I don't tend to grab for this very often. Definitely not to make like an everyday look or to use as on its own, but once in a while there's like, oh, I wish I had that baby pink or that matte bright orange shade, or you know, any of these shades as a part of my eyeshadow look. So it's just so nice to have this small palette to go into and see and use that one shade. So that's typically how I use this, and I guess I felt the need to do that 3 times last year. But again, it's in my Panthers eyeshadows right now, so I am getting a lot more use out of this one. Really happy about that. But yeah, if you're looking for matte colorful eyeshadows, Beautybay is really the place to go. I know that this is one of like the smallest eyeshadow palettes that they have, but they do have some really large ones in all kinds of sizes, really, with beautiful bright colors and just a lot of variety. So go check them out if you're looking for something like that. The last eyeshadow palette that I did have 3 uses in is the Milani Most Loved Mattes. Beautiful, beautiful palette. It is, if I were to like guess the brand for this eyeshadow palette, I would guess something like Guerlain or Dior or Chanel or something like that, because it's very sturdy. It feels exclusive and luxurious, and the mirror is great, and the eyeshadows are just stunning. They're just beautiful. All matte eyeshadows. Again, not super inspiring, so I think that's why I haven't reached for this, but it's just so nice to have this palette in my collection. These are some of the most beautiful matte neutrals that I have. So, and again, this is also in my Panthers eyeshadows project right now, so I'm getting some use out of this one too. I'm so glad that some of the palettes that I used the least last year are now a focus of mine. Really happy about that, and that was just completely by coincidence, because I used like a pretty random app to choose those eyeshadows, so that's fun. But yeah, it's such a beautiful, beautiful eyeshadow palette, and again, Beautybay and Milani is also cruelty free. Alright, next I have 2 eyeshadow palettes that were both used 8 times last year. So first we have the Essence I Like to Mauve It, or something like that. I Like to Mauve It. The writing has come off, but you can barely like see it. This is my least favorite eyeshadow palette in my collection. I really don't like this. It's not the worst one I've ever tried. It's definitely better than Guerlain, but it is not something I would recommend. It's really affordable, it's cruelty free, it's small and handy. I really like the names and the colors look really nice, but the shimmers are just terrible in this palette. They're patchy, not pigmented, really bad. I do quite like the mattes. Actually, they're very unique. This looks like the most boring shade, but it's actually so pretty. So for that reason, I have kept it around. I do not get the hype around these. So many people on YouTube was loving these eyeshadows, so I was kind of wondering if I got like a dud, but I really don't think so. I think it's just what you like and what you don't like, and maybe there's a difference between the different colors. I see a lot of people love the, is it called Coral Me Maybe or something? The peachy coral palette is one that a lot of people are raving about, and the neutral one as well, I think. But this one, I don't hear a lot of people talk about this one. This specific shade, or the I like to move it one. But anyways, I did use it 8 times. Mainly I think I used it because I was forcing myself to kind of figure out my opinion on it. But yeah, I do like the mattes, so I'm keeping it around. Next, also used 8 times last year, was the Natasha Denona Mini Retro palette. Such a beautiful range of colors. This was really bought because I was looking for a sage green matte eyeshadow, and I really thought that this one was going to be just that, but it's really not. It's more like a dirty greenish gray, or brown gray green. It's not like a distinctive green, if you know what I mean. But I do like the little quintet. It doesn't make me want to go out and purchase any of the other Natasha Denona palettes, really. Just judging from this palette, I don't think Natasha Denona are any better than a lot of the other eyeshadows I have in my collection. So it's like I was contemplating whether or not to buy the I Need a Nude palette, but I decided not to, and I'm glad I didn't, because I've seen mixed reviews on that one. Also, I don't remember. It's not the bigger retro palette, but it's the one that has these kinds of shades, like pastel-y beautiful shades. I am kind of thinking, I do kind of have that on my wish list, but it is very expensive, so most likely I won't purchase that one, but that one looks really nice. So that's like the only one from Natasha Denona that I would like to try out. Alright, next we have 9 uses on this Beautybay Nude Mania eyeshadow quad. This really surprised me. This was not a brand I've even heard of when I got this in a beauty advent calendar in 2022, I guess. So I was like, I didn't really have an opinion at all about this brand or these eyeshadows when I started using this, and they looked quite boring to me. I just thought this was going to be another like everyday go-to eyeshadow, which it is, but it's just more than that. It just really surprised me. These eyeshadows are gorgeous. The matte ones are so pigmented, so easy to blend. They look so beautiful on the eyes. And this is also cruelty-free, as well as Natasha Denona. So I guess BeautyAct is like a brand owned and by Kicks, which is a beauty store here in Norway. Somewhat like Sephora, I guess. It has become one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes, so I really enjoy this one. And also a great travel companion. Next we have the one eyeshadow palette I used 10 times. So this has been like on top, one of my favorite eyeshadow palettes for many years. And it is the Colourpop You Had Me at Hello. Such an old palette. I think this is the oldest palette I have in my collection. But I just can't let this one go. I really love these shades. They're just right up my alley. The beautiful pinky mauves, and they're There's like taupes and rose golds, and also leaning more warm on some of these metallics. Just perfect, perfect eyeshadow palette. And this is sort of a mix between giving me some everyday shades and then some more interesting shades to have more fun with as well. So it's just perfect for me. And it has a mirror, it has a few shades to choose from, so it has a good variety, and it's still not very big. So I really, really, really love this one. I guess the only reason I didn't use it even more was because I have some other eyeshadows that I absolutely love as well. Right, next we have 13 uses on this one. This is the Huda Beauty New Nude palette. This is also, I guess, getting older, but I got this right when people were kind of over this palette. That's what I tend to do. Same with the Anastasia Norvina palette as well. People just like, they were over it when I finally got my hands on it. But this is also such a pretty palette. All my favorite like kinds of pinks and purples in this one. Yeah, I really, really enjoy it. I can kind of tell though that these eyeshadows don't perform like they once did. So I'm guessing I'm getting a little bit less pigment from it than I used to. I can kind of tell, but it's still great. And comparing this eyeshadow palette to the little Natasha Denona palette I have, I definitely prefer these eyeshadows over those, but I only have one palette from each brand to compare, so it's really not fair, but I really, really do enjoy this one. Next we have Anastasia Norvina. This was used 14 times. Really happy about that. I do feel like I kind of forced myself a little bit to get to know this palette a little bit more, because this was really neglected previously. And for me, again, it's not a super old palette. I haven't given it much love since I got it, really, because the first few times I used it, which I still feel the same way, I felt like the kind of the same feeling as with the Tati palette, that the mattes were a little bit too pigmented for me. I love a pigmented eyeshadow, but I do prefer to build it up, to be able to build it up and have a little bit more control than having a super, super pigmented eyeshadow that is harder to work with. And then I do experience, like, this is probably the one eyeshadow palette where I experience the most fallout. It's really not enjoyable to apply for that reason. The shimmers are just beautiful, but it's not the most user-friendly eyeshadow palette in my eyes, and for that reason I don't see myself purchasing more Anastasia palettes. We'll see, maybe in the future, but for now it doesn't tempt me. And also, I'm not sure if some of these purples and pinks are the best kinds of purples and pinks for my skin tone. I just don't feel, I'm not always happy with the tone of my eyeshadows when I use this one. So I don't know. I can definitely see why so many people absolutely love this palette, but I don't know if it's the right one for me. Huda Beauty in Norvina is also cruelty free, same as BH Cosmetics as far as I know. I know that they've been bought up by someone else, and I don't have the full overview of what's happening with BH Cosmetics at this moment, so definitely don't take my word on it. But this is my only BH Cosmetics palette, and I have used this 16 times. Yeah. Which is definitely not me forcing myself to use it, because this is, just one of my favorite palettes. I completely fell in love with this when I first got it. It actually doesn't have a mirror, which it bothers me a little bit, but at the same time it's so affordable, so I get why they didn't put a mirror in here. But the shades in this palette, just from looking at it, it reminds me of fall, and I think that this is just a fall palette. But when I actually bring it out during any of the other seasons of the year, I just find it so easy to create any seasonal look. Like I tend to use these pinks in the springtime, and then you've got some greens as well for spring to combine with those pinks. That just ends up being beautiful. The orange is very fall-like though, but you can also use the orange with some of these metallics and create a really fun, warm, summery look. You've got that really cool blue to create a nice wintry look. I just find that this has such a variety. The metallics are absolutely incredible, and the mattes are just lovely as well. They're the perfect mattes for me because they're pigmented but buildable. You can definitely create an easy everyday go-to makeup look, but also just have fun with some colors as well. I really enjoy this eyeshadow palette. Next, I have two palettes that I used 17 times each. So we're getting pretty high up there. We've got the, again, Beautybay pastels colors this time, pressed pigment palette. I don't know, 2-3 years ago, pastels were everything, and I thought I wanted to try out the trend, but I just didn't want to spend too much money on it. And I was looking at so many reviews, so many videos on pastels eyeshadow palettes, and from that I came out with this being the most affordable but still good choice. This is what that one looks like. I was so surprised that I really enjoyed this trend, because you don't have to go all in and do an all over pastel eyeshadow look. You can just incorporate some of these colors into some more neutral colors that you already have in your collection. I've already hit pan on 2 of these shades, which is kind of rare. I don't believe that I've hit pan in any of the other eyeshadow palettes that I've shown you. I do have one more eyeshadow that I've hit pan on some of the eyeshadows in, but it's very rare for me to do that. So it kind of shows me that I really like this eyeshadow palette, and it also shows me that it probably doesn't contain too much eyeshadow. Well, actually, I checked it out. Not much of a difference on these different ones compared to this one, actually. But I guess the pans themselves are a little bit bigger, so it's kind of, the product is more spread out. That could be it. I don't know. But yeah, I love these eyeshadows. As you can see, the purple, or the lavender shade, and the yellow one are my favorites. I also really like the orange shade as well. So beautiful. So if you're looking for an affordable but good pastel palette, I would definitely recommend this one. And then the only eyeshadow palette that I purchased last year is this one, which also have 17 uses. This is the Colourpop Star Wars Mandalorian The Child Pressed Powder Palette. I have a separate video on this talking all about how I feel about this palette, how I came to purchase this one, but mainly I was looking for a sage green eyeshadow palette, and I ended up getting this one, and I'm very pleased with this one. I really enjoy it. I think this is a great eyeshadow palette. It did not disappoint at all. My favorite shade is the one in the middle right there, like a sage / minty matte green. Beautiful shade. And then lastly, we have 2 palettes that were sharing the top spot with 18 usage on each palette. And it doesn't surprise me that it's these two, because I would probably guess from not from looking at the numbers, I would guess that these were my top used, definitely. So first off, it's the W7 My Atlantis Precious Multi-Textured Pressed Pigment Palette. This is the one. This is supposed to be a dupe for the Rose Quartz palette from Huda Beauty. I don't believe that the same quality is there, but at the same time, the quality isn't too bad on this one. There's some hits and misses, but definitely good eyeshadows. And also, most of these metallics are very creamy and like kind of like a hybrid between a powder and a cream eyeshadow, which I really love. And this eyeshadow in particular is absolutely gorgeous. So pretty. I've hit pan on 3 of these eyeshadows, and I just absolutely enjoy using this eyeshadow palette. Although I do feel a little bit iffy about purchasing dupes that are like so clearly dupes from another brand. So in a way, I regret not purchasing the Rose Quartz palette from Huda Beauty. I might do that in the future. I don't know. But for now, I really get a lot from this palette. I really enjoy it. So it's enough for me. And lastly, we have the So Jaded palette from Colourpop. Again, one of those palettes that I decided to purchase when everyone else was over it, right before it discontinued. So this is just the perfect recipe of a perfect palette, eyeshadow palette to me. Even though it's a little bit too big for my taste, it still contains, like, there's no duds. All of these eyeshadows are beautiful and they're all eyeshadows I use. Only bad thing I have to say about this are these 2 glitters. Those are the ones that I don't use at all. I'm not into glitters on my eyes at all, but other than that, these eyeshadows are just marvelous. And this eyeshadow palette gives me so much inspiration. It's so easy to create beautiful looks with these any season, any time. Both the metallics and the mattes are just beautiful and also kind of unique. Some of these eyeshadows are just not to be found anywhere else. And I'm also very much into crystals, and having the shade names be different kinds of crystals are just right up my alley. I'm sad to say that you can't get this anymore. I wish you all could run out and get it and realize how amazing this is. But at the same time, we all have different tastes, so maybe you would hate it, but I really don't see why anyone would not like this. I'm a huge fan of Kathleen Lights as well. She's awesome. That pretty much sums it up. I really feel that I did a good job using all my palettes last year, and it was so much fun for me to analyze this and track it along the way. It's also really nice to have in the back of my mind for any project pans to come, and just see what's a little bit neglected so that I can focus some more on it. So yeah, a really fun thing to do. At least for me, I find it very interesting. So yeah, that's that. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It was so much fun for me to do this throughout the year and to finally show you the results. And so yeah, I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!